People start a podcast. Oh, it's so easy just to get behind a mic, record, and boom.
I always look to nature to get good answers. In nature, if something is stagnant, it will die, right? We don't want stagnant water. We don't want that. And so in our own life, when we are stuck, I always tell someone, take one tiny little step. Take a step to get off of where you are now, create a little bit of movement, create a little bit of motion. And maybe that goes to the Tom thing. If you go and you're like, that didn't light my world on fire. Something, that's information, that's good. You are no longer stuck. You have more information. And I do believe in following the energy. We know when something lights us up, whether it's at work or personally or professionally, we feel it. And I do think that so much of the answers are there if we pay attention to them.
I completely agree. I think all the answers are always within us. It's just we need to be able to trust ourselves. But the trust comes from taking action. You can't trust yourself when you don't take any action. When you do, you start almost being like, oh, I did this. I can do this. Completely agree. And I just want to take a tangent right now and ask you, well, you were doing all these really awesome things. So you were killing it in corporate. You were like, that wasn't it for me. I'm going to try my hands into coaching. You got a coach and all of that was working. Why did you decide to add podcasting to the mix?
I love people. I think one of the things that I know about myself is I really love people and I love people's stories. I love intimate discussions. And I just think that the podcast realm is so beautiful because we get to have this intimate discussion, but with permission that we allow other people in. And I consume podcasts. I love listening to so many podcasts, yours and others. And I always leave feeling better, more informed, more excited and engaged and inspired. And so I started my podcast because I'm like, if I really believe in this theme, and I do, in this brand of live the width of your life, I want to share stories of my clients, of everyday people who are taking courageous action, who are deciding to step out in faith, even though when they're fearful, right? And make some new changes in their life, because that's how we get inspired. We know the celebrity stories, but it's the everyday people who are choosing to do something that seems maybe a little unorthodox or something that they didn't even think was within them that is really inspiring to all of us. And so I love being a part of that. So that's why I decided to start the podcast.
And you're absolutely right. We're so used to listening to celebrity stories. We don't listen to the everyday life stories, but in so many ways, they're so much more relatable, right? Because you're going through the same things as I am. Oh my God. It's not like they're doing some ordinary things. You're like, how did this person do this? How are they kind of doing all of this stuff that we all kind of want to do? And it kind of goes back to what you said earlier, is always finding people 2 steps ahead. And that's kind of what your podcast brings to people, right? It's like, here are people who are a couple of steps ahead of you. You don't have to worry about looking at the Rihannas of the world or the Beyoncés, go Beyonce. But you can just look at people who are just a couple of steps ahead and killing it and actually happy in their life, which is a term that not many people can use confidently, right? And it's sad reality, but feeling that kind of happiness and peace in your life while doing something that you love is very rare. And thank you for mentioning all of that, because a lot of times when people start a podcast or anything of that nature, they just kind of assume that, it's all fun and game, right? Oh yeah, it's so easy just to get behind a mic, record, and boom, next day you're going to become famous or you're going to make $1 million in 3 months. And I think the reality is, and unfortunately, a lot of podcast coaches sell that. They sell that illusion, which, from the beginning, I've been very, very honest. I'm like, this stuff takes time. Is it 100% worth it? For me, a hell yes. But when you do it the right way, and you were saying it, figuring it out, right? And that's what it is. And I'm still figuring it out, and I'm 2 years in, right? And I'm just like, oh, maybe I want to do this more. And it makes your messaging clearer to yourself. I don't know if that happened to you, but for me, it happened. I'm like, ooh, this is what I want to target. This is what I want to talk about. And then I realized, oh, this is always going to happen. My podcast is always going to evolve, and it's going to help me evolve. But so many people get into it saying, I should know what my style should be. And I'm like, but why? This is the whole point of it, is to discover what works for you, what works for your audience. And, a lot of times people take feedback, whether it be it downloads or likes and stuff, negatively. Either it's working really well for them or it's not. And I'm like, but it's still feedback. It's telling you either something is working or not. And if it's not, that's great feedback because you get to pivot. I think all of it's exciting for me too. Like if one of my podcast episodes just completely fails, I've never thought of it like, oh, what went wrong? I'm always like, well, that was a fun recording. I wonder why it didn't resonate, you know? So it's just cool feedback loop. And it's just so important to change your mindset around the numbers, and because everyone's listening. And it's actually so interesting. I don't know if this has happened to you, but sometimes the things that you feel like you recorded that sucked get the most downloads. And then it's the vice versa thing you put so much effort in. Do you agree?
Yes, I totally agree. It's always interesting to see what the response is, and it's exciting to see the ones that people really connect with. But before I started, something that I thought was kind of fun, and it talks about this evolution, is I went to all the podcasts that I listen to like religiously, and I listened to their very first podcast. And so going back and listening to all of these different podcast episodes showed me the growth and the potential over time. And so I thought, okay, so if that worked for all these other folks, it's going to work for me too. And of course, I put something out that was professional and use the equipment. Like there's table stakes, of course, but over time, you should expect that you get better, and you should expect that it's fun. I mean, if you're not having fun and if it's not playful along the journey, people are going to know that. They're going to pick up on the energy or they won't. I really do believe that. And so it has to be a sense of curiosity yourself throughout the process, and then using the signs, using the data, and making adjustments as needed. And also, I talk to my community. I survey my community. I was doing episodes initially every week, and they're like, I love listening to them and I want to listen to them, but I listen to 6-7 total podcasts, I think, which is the average person listens to about 7. They said, you know, do it every other week and do some solo episodes. They wanted to hear directly from me. So that is just really good information. And then I've been able to incorporate that based on their feedback.